Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Gameweek 15 preview. As always, it is a Wednesday night, and for once, we've actually got Premier League games on in the background, so we might get some nice overviews, but I don't think any of our teams are playing, so it's one of them where if it happens, it happens. Obviously, I'm joined, as always, by a great amount of guests. I know all of us have been called in at one point or another, but I very much appreciate them backing me up on this very gloomy Wednesday night. So, Barney, becoming a bit of a regular, mate. How you doing?
I am, yeah. It's good to be on the show again with you, Kallum, and great to see you both as well, Harry and Justin. I've got your name there for a second. It eluded me. But yeah, looking forward to talking about football.
Lovely stuff, mate. And Henry, obviously, back on again, mate. Palace have had a little bit of a resurgence. They did get a crucial win the other night within reason. So are you a little bit happier this time than you was last time, mate?
Yeah, good to be back on. So thanks for having me. Bit last minute, but we don't mind it. Yeah, like you said, massive win. It was. I was at work. I was on the delivery off the truck, so I was keeping an eye on the game, and kind of the last 20 odd minutes were a bit nail bitey. But yeah, big win. Good goal from Mateta as well. Hopefully, you can find some form again, like we've spoken about every time I've been on it, how good he was last season. But yeah, potentially the start of something special. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Sounds good to me, mate. And Mateta is still one of my favourite forwards in the Premier League. I would probably take him to back up at Spurs. So I will come over to my partner in crime. We probably have committed a crime one way or another, somewhere or other. Probably a crime to have us both in the same room, to be honest. So, Jay, how you doing, mate?
Oh, when I got given the call to come and step up and they told me it was going to be with you, I thought, yeah, why not? So thank you for having us on.
No, I really appreciate all of you boys being here with me. So obviously, don't forget to check out all of H's sponsors, and don't forget to like and subscribe for tonight. Obviously, we are in midweek Premier League games as we go along now. We are getting a thick and fast fixture schedule, so let's jump straight into it because pretty much we love football. So we will go to the Merseyside derby. I mean, this one has definitely got polar opposites, let's put it that way. We've got Liverpool under Arne Slot being an outstanding run of form, and Everton under the aforementioned Sean Dyche, who is definitely feeling a little bit of a squeeze in different areas where he wouldn't want it to be. Fenway Group still haven't taken over. They are still in negotiations. So let's jump straight into this. So, Henry, I mean, obviously, Everton are down towards the end of the table. Liverpool at the top, completely opposite up ends, but playing at Goodison's not always the easiest place, is it? Especially for a Merseyside derby.
No, for sure. You make a good point. I think they're proving that even tonight. I think they were 2-0 up, but the second goal disallowed against Wolves, which is obviously a massive game down at the bottom. Wolves are struggling big time this season. I think Everton fans would probably be pretty content with how they're doing of recent anyway, because, I mean, currently sitting 15th with this win especially. They're not doing too badly. Obviously, welcoming Liverpool, who are just phenomenal this season, is going to be tough. It always is tough playing against Liverpool. But I think you make a good point. Goodison's, if they can maintain that kind of positive home atmosphere, I know it can be hard when they're struggling at the bottom, but if they can kind of, the fans can get behind the team and the players can kind of feel that energy, then anything's possible. I can't really see this going anywhere other than the Liverpool win. They're just so ruthless at the moment. But it's going to be an interesting game, that's for sure.
No, exactly, mate. And Jay, if I come over to you, mate, there has been some big news out of Liverpool today from the Athletic saying that there have been approaches to Van Dijk, Salah and Arnold on the contract front, which has pretty much scared the hell out of all Liverpool fans for about a season and a half now. I mean, do you think that has any input into this game, or do you think it's just hit and hope and see who signs and who doesn't?
Well, I think, to be fair, it's not like they haven't been aware of this. This has sort of been, rumbling on. We've heard it from interviews I think Salah gave after the Southampton game, and we've heard the links in terms of Alexander-Arnold and Real Madrid. I think with that one, they're going to more sort of try to aim for the summer rather than trying to get him in January. But from one reason or another, when it comes to Liverpool and Arne Slot, I think he's just trying to take it as, and you can't blame them, regardless of what happens in their contract situations. He's almost trying to brush it under the carpet and just forget about it, because even if they do go at the end of the season, the three of them, I doubt all three will. I think if I was a betting person, I'd probably say Van Dijk will be the one that will sign on. I think with the others, I think there's an appetite maybe that when it comes to Salah, they don't want to extend because of his age. I think with Alexander-Arnold, I think he seems to like the idea of potentially going abroad. I think he likes the idea of potentially going to Madrid, which seems to be the biggest one's courting his signature. But I think from his perspective, he's looking at it as, if I can have a season where I win the Premier League, or in the Champions, I mean, they've won the Champions League before. The Premier League's the one for Liverpool, which seems to be the biggest opportunity and the biggest sort of, spectacle for them. Then he'll just go down as a legend, So it's almost like, and you look at everything around them, I think they've got like a 9-point lead over Arsenal going into today's fixtures. So when you look at it from that perspective, they've got the best opportunity, and it hasn't seemed to phase them. So I don't think it will. I think it will just, Slot will let that run along in the background. If they sign on, great. If they won't, if they win in the title, I don't think they'll truly get.
No, I really appreciate that, mate. And Barney, obviously, it's two polar opposites, isn't it, this season? One team high flying, one team not what they would hope for, especially as they could have the biggest stadium in the Championship if they do go down. But we'll have to see how that is. How do you see this one going, mate?
Well, if I was an Everton fan, I wouldn't be massively disappointed at where they are in the table. I mean, they're currently obviously playing now. They've got 14 points as it stands. Liverpool, as we know, they're a different kettle of fish this season, Kallum. They just seem to have that level above everyone else. And every single one of their players seems to feature in Team of the Week, pretty much, game week in, game week out. And there's not one player there who I wouldn't love to have in my side. So to be honest with you, the way Liverpool are playing at the moment, and with the momentum, I can only see a Liverpool win here, Kallum.
Okie dokie. No, I fully appreciate that, boys. So let's jump on to our next fixture, and that will be, well, that's a 12:30 kickoff. So I think that's quite cracking way to start off a Saturday. I'm not going to lie. To be honest, if I'm at work, I probably will have it on the radio as a neutral. I think goals galore, keep you entertained, so you can't complain on that one. So let's jump across to Villa Park, and we will go for a 3 o'clock kickoff with this. Obviously, Southampton at the moment drawing, falling behind Chelsea early on, 2-1 at present as it stands. I don't know whether Villa have played yet. No, Villa get the luxury of Villa even playing this week.
Yeah, they're playing Brentford tonight.
Can't find.
They're playing.
What's the score?
They're playing them at 8:15 tonight.
Oh, they've got the late. They've got the late one. Okie dokie. Yeah, live score weren't showing it on my phone, so thank you, live score. So, Barney, I'm going to come straight back to you on this one, mate.
Yep.
Obviously, Southampton still not out of this sort of Russell Martin playing the nice football that top clubs would probably like to play. It's how Company got the Bayern Munich job from playing that, and it don't work when you got a team like Southampton, to be honest, not the right demographic of players. And then Villa, they've had a couple of hiccups, but still up there and still keeping their Champions League form alive. So what's your thoughts on this one, mate?
Well, I mean, the table is so tight. I mean, if you look at it pretty much from 13th all the way up until, 6th? There's just so little points in it. So Villa shouldn't be too downhearted where they are. They've got enough quality, certainly. But you're right about the way Southampton play. I mean, the longer this goes on now, I say this week in, week out, I do fear for them because they're not changing their style. The manager has this philosophy that he just wants to continue with. And it's not working. They are battling, sure, and they are scoring the odd goal here and there. But I just don't think they have the kind of the stamina, if you like, to see games out. And I do fear for them. So at this moment in time, I can see certainly a Villa win. I just don't see how Southampton can get out of this rut, if you like, because they're trying, but it's just not working.
Yeah, let's put it this way. There's a battle and then there's a war. and they might win the odd battle here and there, but I can't see them surviving the war, which will be a relegation battle. And my best mate is a Southampton fan, but he looks like he wants to cry every time I see him. I was thinking that it would be a nice survival game this year. I can't see him surviving. So, I mean, Jay, do you echo what Barney's saying, mate? Or do you think this could be a potential banana skin for Villa?
No, not in the slightest. I think the problem that you've got, and I think you touched upon it with regards to Vincent Kompany in terms of Burnley, did exactly the same thing. You know, try playing lovely football, playing out from the back. And obviously you can see the success he's having with Bayern Munich, but he was doing it with championship players. And obviously in the championship, you get that extra 2, 3, 4 seconds to do that. You don't get that in the Premier League. And Russell Martin is trying to stick to his beliefs, which is fine, but there's an element of having to be pragmatic there. And sometimes, you know, like, for example, in the Ipswich game, I think it was when they were either 2-0 or 2-1 up, you know, sometimes maybe just you shut up shop. When you're in the position that you are, you might have principles, but ultimately you want to stay in the Premier League because that is where, you know, the money is. That's where you can then get the better players and you can then build on that. I mean, we've seen it with other clubs who've done this. So I personally, for me, I just see that Southampton will go back down. And I think that Aston Villa, if they get a result tonight, that could kickstart them going on a run, you know, with, I wouldn't be surprised if Southampton just take a hiding.
No, I fully appreciate that. And Henry, if I come over to you, mate, I mean, does this have, well, the writings on the wall, we're all in agreement for Southampton, but I mean, for Russell Martin's future, does this mean that he could have a nice romantic story ahead of him, that if he does get sacked or go down with Southampton, does that mean a big club's going to come and approach him to try and make him play like Bayern Munich? I mean, could it be that a Brighton, a Chelsea, if they ever want to change, a big club in Germany, could they all potentially look at him and say, you play a nice style? Could it have companies literally his ditto story written against it?
I don't know. I think it's an interesting conversation because like we say, you know, they play a good style, but like every time I've watched Southampton this year, they've just been crap. Really, they ship a load of goals. They don't defend well. They don't defend as a unit. They're not particularly impressive going forward either. I think they've got a couple of good players. I really like Joe Aribo, but other than that, I just don't think they're a very good team. So I thought the Kompany incident was interesting, and I'm pretty sure that Chelsea have just scored a third goal, so it's now 3-1. They just seem to ship goals. They don't defend well. Obviously, they've had a lot of injuries, and that's not ideal. But then you look at Villa, who are winless in 8 in all competitions. So obviously tonight they're hosting Brentford. That's a big game. Brentford are a great team. Brentford are have the ability to put, you know, the obviously home advantage for Villa is going to play into their hands. But I think Southampton probably are looking at it and looking at Villa's current form and maybe considering this as a game where they could potentially get some points.
No, I fully agree with that, mate. Jay, for your benefit, City are 2-0 up on Forest, and it wasn't Haaland. So tough love on that one, mate.
Yeah,
but
Forest did also miss a massive chance. Chris Wood went 1-on-1.
Yeah, Chris Wood somehow.
And Chelsea's third one was Madueke. So whoever's got him in their squad might be lucky on that one tonight. Right, let's jump over to West London. And Barney, obviously you are our resident West London fan. What's going on, Henry?
Newcastle have just gone 1-0 against Liverpool. Unbelievable strike from Isak, just outside of the box, absolutely bullet top corner.
I'm loving this live commentary. It's brilliant.
It's got
I was going to say,
when there's goals flying in like this tonight, this is incredible.
Should we stop doing previews and we'll just do watch-alongs? We'll do watch-alongs.
Well, it's good timing now looking at Brentford v Newcastle, isn't it?
I'd rather not because I kept Haaland in and took Isak out.
Oh dear.
I took them both out.
Jay?
Yeah, I feel like that. Thanks. Unbelievable.
All right, so yeah, Barney, let's jump over,
Yeah.
obviously, on that limelight there of Newcastle being 1-0 up on Liverpool. So, I mean, obviously, we are doing this game for the weekend, though. So, I know one of your close rivals over in West London. Obviously, Brentford, we've been very much wax lyrical about Thomas Frank. I know myself and you have a very strong soft spot for him as well. He plays a very good style of football and he has some cracking players down there. I think both of us would take it at Fulham or Spurs as well. So how do you see this one going, mate? Because it's definitely a very tight game, I would say.
It will be a tight game. Obviously, disregarding what Newcastle are doing at the moment, they're a good side. Newcastle, and they've got players who can hurt you. But Brentford are a different animal at home. I've been so impressed with them, the way they pass the ball around, they get forward. They just look like they're going to score with every attack. So I like what Thomas Frank is doing. Yeah, I mean, even as a Fulham fan saying that, I like him. I think he's done wonders there. So at this stage, I can only see a Brentford win, certainly with their home form being as good as it is. You wouldn't want to bet against them.
No, exactly, mate, exactly. And Henry, if I come over to you on this one, mate, I mean, obviously Newcastle are one of them clubs that can have a stinker or they can play amazing. They don't seem to have any in between, do they? Sort of thing. They kind of remind me of Spurs at the moment, but at least they've got a talisman striker in Isak, and I mean, the guy's class, isn't he? So, I mean, can you see Newcastle putting Brentford to the sword, or can you see Brentford getting a couple of early goals with their outstanding set-piece coach?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting one, and I think you're spot on about Newcastle being just hot and cold, because we obviously we played them, drew 1-1, and that felt like a win. I mean, we restricted them to no shots on target, one shot in the entire game, and they just looked lost. And then, you know, watching now against Liverpool, and they're all over them. They've almost just gone 2-0 up. It's like it's just a bizarre situation that they find themselves in. I almost feel like maybe there's a question that the manager maybe might be at his limit now, and they maybe need to start looking at maybe a Thomas Frank to come in and kind of take them further. I think you're all spot on about Frank as well. He's superb. I mean, the way he's got them playing, the way he's managed to get players like Johan Visser and Brian Mbeumo, and now they're kind of top Premier League forwards. You know, Visser's one of the top scorers in the league, which I don't think many people would have seen coming. I think it's going to be a really interesting game, to be honest. I think, you know, the Brentford home advantage is definitely one that should be taken into account. I think, you know, if they can, like you said, get an early goal, then you never know what can happen there. And I think it's one of those where, I mean, I look at this weekend's the next round of fixtures coming up, and there's a lot of goals in those fixtures, and they're exciting games. And, you know, this is, for me, one of the best matchups of the weekend.
No, I highly agree, mate. I mean, this has got the writing of at least 2, maybe 3 goals in it at least. So, I mean, Jay, obviously we're gonna always say that Newcastle are very good up north, and Brentford have all surprised us going forward as well. And like I said to the other guys, Spurs will probably take after players that we can get out of that. So, I mean, what do you think on this one, mate?
Yeah, it's going to be an entertaining game. I think that the interesting part, as you sort of said with Newcastle, it is so hit and miss with them, because it was almost hit and miss with both clubs, because you would almost bank on the fact that Brentford should win this, because Brentford are brilliant at home and Newcastle are terrible away. So you sort of look at it and think it should be a home banker, but you look at the quality, you know, particularly what Newcastle have got, you know, when you look at the likes of Tonali, Gordon, you know, Guimaraes, Isak, players like that can really go out there and hurt you. You would tend to think that, you know, almost it should be the other way around, but it's just such a level of inconsistency with Newcastle, and then culminating with Brentford's form, which, you know, they've been clever about. You know, okay, they're not that great away from home, but at home they've made sure it is almost like the G-Tech has become a bit of a fortress for them. And, you know, when you look at the players like Johan Visser and Brian Mbeumo, players like that, you almost sit there and you think, you know, they've done an amazing job, particularly as they continuously seem to be, you know, they seem to have to sell players. You know, when you look at the fact they lost Ivan Toney, you sort of sat there and worried a bit for them. But, you know, credit to Thomas Frank, who I think he is an excellent coach. You know, I wanted him over Ange. I really did. So, You know, when you look at in terms of what he has been doing at Brentford, I can't see how long he'll be there for, because once a top job, I wouldn't necessarily say Newcastle, more because the way that they're set up and the way that they want to attract the higher level of players, you know, and things like that, they're more going to be looking at open checkbook type signings where and when they can. So I think they would look at somebody like an Allegri who's out of work, or if Mourinho walked away from Fenerbahce, someone like that would more likely go into Newcastle. But in terms of that game, I think there'll be goals, but I think Brentford will probably nick it. To be fair, though, it does depend on how they get on against Liverpool, because if they do go on and beat Liverpool, I think that is going to put them in, you know, a real sort of good position to then kick on in going into the Brentford game.
I think you make a really good point about Tony as well. I think people saw that as such a damning loss to Brentford, but if anything, it's just allowed Visser, Mbeumo, those sorts of players, Sharda, who obviously did really well at the weekend, to kind of step in and really step up and up their output and up their contribution. And I think, Frank, you make a really good point as well about the Newcastle job potentially, and that I think the style of Frank's play would suit Newcastle really well, and I think the fans would really buy into it. But a part of me just thinks that Thomas Frank thrives with lesser talents, if you like. Obviously talented players, but smaller names and smaller budgets. And you know, he's turned like Christian Norgard, for example, into an unbelievable Premier League central midfielder. And I think players like that, and you know, even Keane Lewis-Potter, who they signed from Hull, and he had a really poor first year, but is now kind of coming into his own and really nailing down his skill set and becoming a good Premier League player. I think he seems to thrive with kind of smaller players, if you like. And I think, yeah, Brentford are in a great position, and I think the longer they can keep hold of Frank, the better. Although, as we've mentioned, I think the second an appealing job, if you like, for him comes up, I think he'll be jumping ship.
Henry, was you looking into mine and Justin's crystal ball heads? And when you said small budget, lower class players, was you thinking Spurs? Because that's literally Daniel Levy's fucking motto when it comes to it.
You know what? I do think
Daniel Levy was
done a resume check.
Now, yeah.
I mean, you guys know that I'm a fan of Ange, but I mean, I do think Frank would be a great fit. I'm just going to really quickly add another live update because I think you'll love this. Jack Stevens has been sent off for Southampton for pulling Mark Cucurella's hair.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
Yeah, grabs his afro by the back and just gives it a little tug, and he's been sent off.
Only Christian Romero can get away with that.
Barney tried to do that to me and Jay, but he kind of just slid off.
Yeah. He hasn't got it, has he? He's got to do it properly. Aerodynamic. Makes you more aerodynamic, this does.
Love it.
I don't have that problem.
No, yeah. Not envious at all, mate. Move on.
There we go. Right. Emery, we're jumping straight back at you, mate. I mean, this is literally Palace putting their pants down, ain't it? Well, you would have said so at the start of the season,
I don't.
City aren't great. City aren't the great.
You say that. I think, well, the thing is, obviously, City are 2-0 up currently, and that could end up being a 5-0 or so. But I feel like City, you're right, they're just not brilliant at the moment. And I remember saying this, and I'm gonna make a point of this because I feel like not many people made this point at the time. Is that when they first had those 2 bad results right at the start of this run, I said on this podcast, this is going to be really interesting to see how these players react because they're not used to losing games. And it's just been fascinating for me on a psychological level to look at how these players they just seem to collapse mentally. They don't know what they're doing. They're not used to being in this position where they're losing games. They're shipping goals, 3-0 up against Feyenoord in the Champions League. I mean, that you're hosed and dry at that point, and then suddenly, you know, you turn around and Feyenoord have scored 3 goals in 10 minutes, and it's level. I think it's.
Oh, we lost him.
He got a bit.
Jay, what you done to him?
My hands are
here. Jay, did you hide him in your basement? Is he in your basement, mate?
I hope not. I've got others in there. Shh.
My God! Right, Barney, call the police. Yep. Send the Met round his way. But no. Barney, let me come to you on this one, mate.
Yeah.
Obviously, Henry was saying City have pretty much dug their heels in, and they have just no idea whatsoever at the moment, do they?
Yeah.
Henry, welcome back.
I'm not sure what happened there.
We thought Jay had kidnapped you.
Oh, he might have done. Who knows? Cut my hair off and stick it on his.
Yeah, I was going to glue it onto mine.
I think it's just one of those where it's a really interesting. I think it will be a good fixture. I'm going to go to the game. I've got the option of that or play myself, and I think I'm going to opt for going to Selhurst. But it's one of those where I think I think the Newcastle result is massive. I think obviously it was only 1-1, but it felt like a win. And, that last minute, you see all the players running over to the corner, Glasner sprinting up. And I wish I was there because it's right in front of where I sit. So that would have been brilliant. But I think you can't underestimate how the kind of psychological impact of the players then going back into the changing room and seeing that they're out of the relegation zone, then picking up a crucial 3 point. I mean, that's a 6-pointer against Ipswich last night, which, for Palace, it shouldn't be the way we ended last season. But this is a reality we find ourselves in. And I think that... we've had good results against City. We're probably behind Spurs, one of City's bogey teams, if you like. I mean, I know they turn everyone over consistently, but we've had good results at the Etihad. We've had good results against them at Selhurst. It just depends what City turn up, and I think that's the case with every team at the moment. Forest will have been going to the Etihad tonight and thinking, we could do a number on them. They've had a good season, but City so far have just turned it on and they're 2-0 up. So it's one of those where if City decide that they want to play well and they want to win, they'll probably beat us quite comfortably. But there's no reason why we can't threaten them. Mateta did do well against them last season in the same fixture at home and scored early on. And I think that this is a City side that, and it's rare to say, but it's a City side that are there to be got at. And I think that's quite exciting. And, for any team playing City at the moment and just a neutral watching City generally, it's exciting that, they're not guaranteed to win games. It's brilliant. And it's kind of it's fed into this kind of more competitive Premier League, if you like. I think Barney touched on it earlier, how tight the league is in terms of points and how, what the win for Palace last night has lifted us, now with the games currently going on, just 8 points behind Spurs in 9th, which is just insane. But yeah, I think it could be a good game. I'm not going to throw a score prediction out there because I don't really like to do that, and I'm normally quite pessimistic. So I think it's a game where Palace could get something. Touch wood, hopefully.
No, I completely agree, mate. Barney, let me come over to you, mate.
Yeah.
Obviously, like Henry said, anyone's game in the Premier League. Definitely, Palace did get that big win last night, and City get a much needed win tonight, let's put it that way, to try and keep up at least up the top. Where are you going with this one, mate?
Henry will like what I'm about to say, but Palace have some really, really good players. Obviously, a really moral boosting win against Ipswich yesterday. That can't be underestimated how big that is, because as you quite rightly said, you look at the table now, suddenly a win or two, you're right up there with us and Spurs and the like. So that would be seen as a success. But you touched on it as well about which City turn up. I mean, we all know it's a mentality issue, I think, with them. And you're right, they're not used to losing and they don't know how to deal with it. I've thought that as well. When you have that winning mentality all the time, I suppose it's fans as well, isn't it? You just see your side win and win. And you don't almost know how to react to a defeat, if that makes sense. So, yeah, it's very, very much a case of which City turn up. I think Palace will give them a game, certainly. Too hard to predict at this stage. I'm thinking a draw, but it wholly depends on, City decide to turn up and basically play.
Yeah, I agree. I think it should be a close game, really. Obviously, Palace at home. If it was at the Etihad, it's a different story. But I do think it could be a close game. The Palace fans are going to be right up for it. The atmosphere at Ipswich last night, from what I've heard from mates that were there, was incredible. And then we've got some big games coming up. We've got Brighton away that I'm at next weekend, and then 3 days later we're taking 6,500 to the Emirates in the Cup. So there's a chance to build some really good momentum. A positive result against City. This coming weekend would do wonders for our season. Really, it would.
No, very much
100%.
so. And Jay, we're going to the north of England again. I know you're pessimistic, so I'll give you Man United on this one, mate. Obviously, Amorim, I think it's to be his 4th game in charge now. He's obviously had Europe, and he's pretty much not doing that bad at the moment. I mean, they ain't playing great, but he is playing most of their squad. And obviously, Forest at the moment are on the end of another Manchester club at the moment, 2-0 down, and are ruining your day until Haaland scores for them as well. So, where are you thinking on this, mate? Have you been impressed with Amorim? Have you too early to tell, or have you been impressed by Nuno doing something that he can't?
Well, I think in terms of Nuno, it was always going to be a difficult one because he was given a job that nobody wanted him to have. You know, when he came to Tottenham, he was never wanted there, not by the owner, not by the only person who wanted there was Paratici, and you know, and then obviously he did no favours to help himself really from that one. He was itching to get sacked. But in terms of the job that he has done at Forest, he's done a fantastic job. I think it was always going to be difficult, particularly the game with City, because you know City are capable of this. Okay, they've been having blips, and we can sort of dissect as to why that is. But the fact of it being is they have that ability to turn it on. For 80 minutes against Feyenoord, they did so. So it's not a surprise they're losing 2-0. I think it'll be a different game, though, in terms of against United. I do still fancy United. I think when we look at what they did against Everton, you know, and how well they're trying to adapt, you know, in terms of, because it was very interesting listening to Amorim when he was talking after the Ipswich game about the mistakes they were making and different decisions that he was almost saying, you know, he was surprised to see in these type of players, almost sort of indicating these players are just not good enough. But I think he's, you know, it's going to be clear with United that he's going to be working under a budget because they blew a lot of what he would have had with Ten Hag in the summer. So, but he has got some players in there that, you know, I think he will see as an opportunity to try and get a tune out of, you know, the likes of, you know, Malacia, Diallo, people like that, Garnacho, Højlund. He's got some real talent along with the established players like, you know, Fernandes, you know, in terms of the captain, Rashford, people like that. So for me, I can only see a United win purely because of the fact that I just think Forest, it's almost like for them, there's a different battle, I think, going on. I think for them, it's more a case of just trying to build. You know, they did an excellent job last year under Nuno, that, you know, in terms of, you know, sort of staying up and trying to stabilize themselves. I think they're now trying to get on to maybe if they can crack into Europe, things like that. So it's a different sort of, you know, what Forest will probably be looking for. But you certainly can't, you know, take them out of the equation when they've got the likes of Alanga, Gibbs White, you know, Chris Wood, people like that can hurt you. And they did that. Let's not forget they did that at Anfield, you know, so they went to Anfield and did a number on them. So could they do a number again? It wouldn't be out of the question. But if I was going to the bookies, I'd be putting money on United.
To be fair, you do look like that weird guy that hangs around the bookies, mate. I'm not going to lie.
Well, I haven't seen you there for a while, so I've had to keep it up for both of us.
Oh, but no. There was one player that you missed out from Forest that I absolutely adore, and I think he's a class player as well. Hudson-Odoi as well. What a steal of a player that he's great. Got there for about 15 or 20 million.
Well, they got Alanga for that as well. Don't forget,
you
know, Alanga they got for 15 million as well. So they do know how to buy some quality players at cheap prices.
Did you touch on Elliot Anderson?
No,
because for me,
he's been quite stable in the middle.
He's sensational. I mean, I was at Forest Palace when they beat us 1-0, and he just ran the show. He's just so much energy. It was one of those where every time Forest won the ball back, it was Elliot Anderson. He was everywhere, all over the pitch. And I think that was such a brilliant signing. And I know it was a lot of money from Newcastle. I can't remember exactly how much, 35 million.
Yeah, it was about 30. But I mean, to be fair, I was quite surprised by him because obviously he went there under, I don't know if you remember when there was that mini window that certain clubs had to do for PSR. And it was almost like he was done just to tick a box. But out of that, he's gone there and he's just been brilliant. Yeah, no, to be fair, that is a fair shout. But I think when you look at Forest throughout, they've got the likes of Murillo at the back. So they've been quite clever in terms of where they've added certain players in certain positions to accommodate for their style, and I think that's, we know that Nuno is not going to be all guns blazing. He is going to be one of those ones who's pragmatic. So I would say that United have to be very careful, but if they treat it in the same way that I think we're seeing with City, I can only see United win.
No, I fully appreciate that, mate. Obviously, to everyone in the chat, don't forget to like and subscribe. Get your questions in. The guys are more than happy to go for it. I know we've got a nice Geordie fan in there saying, take that, Scousers. They're definitely very happy up in the northeast of England compared to our friends down there for it. But obviously, and looks like H is here as well. Don't know where he appeared from. Go away. This is my time. You get Monday, I get Wednesdays. I've taken Jay away from you Mondays. Right, let's go over to Barney. Obviously, you spoiled my weekend big time. I was going to text you with some profanities. I thought probably best not. I thought it'd be very rude and all that. But obviously, Fulham are coming off the back of a 1-1 draw at White Hart Lane, which probably a couple of years ago would have been unknown, but now it shows how inconsistent Spurs are. I mean, it is a surprise, though, that we got 2 draws in a row. We don't get draws under Ange, but you guys managed to do it, even though you did go down to 10 men. And I think that is, who was it? It's Kearney that got it.
Tom Kearney, yeah.
Yeah,
Tom Kearney, the scorer.
Yeah, so he scored your goal and then got suspended. So I'm guessing, has Fulham appealed that decision, or was it held in place and he's going to be suspended for about 3 games now?
Marco's not going to, from what I heard in the press conference, they're just going to accept it. So it is what it is, and we'll just have to bring in players in for Brighton and Arsenal and Liverpool.
Okie dokie. So, I mean, how are you feeling on the back of this one, mate? Because obviously Arsenal have got Odegaard back. They're definitely hitting some form now, aren't they, to say the least?
Well, I can't sort of, preview this game without just mentioning the 1-1 draw. Just very briefly, it was really good. We had such momentum there. After the Wolves result, you wanted a response, and we did. We should have won. There's no question about it on Sunday. We were the better side, 100%. Going in, obviously, to the Arsenal game, we obviously played Brighton before then, but so it's hard to sort of jump a game. With 2 home games coming up, we know the damage Arsenal can do, but we've obviously practically got an Arsenal B team at the moment, so they'll be up for it. Emil Smith-Rowe, Nelson gave Pedro Porro such a torrid time when we played them. I thought he was one of my standouts. Really, really, really good. So I think he'll be key. I think players like Harry Wilson will be key. Sander Berge, Sasa Luick in midfield, I think need to sort of really be on it. We need to sort of take control, get a bit of control in that kind of area. It very much depends, Kallum, which Fulham turn up. I mean, it's like Fulhamish and Spursy, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's we can be great one game and not so great the next. We've been quite inconsistent. It's really, really hard to predict this one, but we are capable of a draw, if not better, if we really play to our strengths. Because Arsenal can hurt us. We know the damage their players can do. They've got quality all over the park, from to the goalkeeper to the forwards.
No, exactly, mate. I mean, the thing that disappointed me about Fulham, I thought your midfield was outstanding at the weekend. Your wide forwards were brilliant as well. Jimenez, though, and I think, was it, who did you bring on as well to replace him as well partway through the game?
Rodrigo.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie. They were shit. They were absolutely,
to be honest,
I don't diabolical, mate.
Yeah, to be honest, I talked to a lot of Fulham, friends and whatnot. They're squad players, right? They're not like strikers who I would have as my starting choice. We've always been restrictive there. And I've said quite openly, I've said this to Harry as well, if we had a competent 20 goal season striker, we'd be in Europe. And I'll put that out there, we will. Because I think this team has enough quality in the rest of it to sort of back that up. So yeah, that was disappointing. not having that clinical edge. I think Spurs and Fulham were both very, very guilty of missing chances, though.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. And Henry, if I come to you on this one, obviously Fulham do have one of Palace's favourite players in recent years in Anderson, and he has been quite revolutionary at the back, to say the least, for them. So, I mean, do you think this has got Fulham's name all over it, or do you think Arsenal just got too much for him?
I think like Barney's touched on, it's one of those where, again, I mean, we say this a lot, and it kind of becomes a bit of a cliche, but I do think it's true. Is that it just depends, if Fulham take their chances, if they can, dominate in midfield. I think you make a good point about Sasha Lucic, and if there can be that kind of dominance in midfield, and then you can build on, and you've got such positive, bright attackers. It could go either way. I think Anderson's been solid for Fulham. I know a lot of Fulham fans that I've seen on social media are pretty happy. Go on, Barney.
Oh, he's actually injured at the moment. Sorry, I thought I should add that he's not playing.
Okay. Yeah. I thought I'd seen that, but I think that's an interesting deal. I think there's a lot of kind of weird online Twitter beef between Palace and Fulham fans about Anderson, and obviously us replacing him with Maxence Lacroix. I just didn't really understand it. I think Anderson was a superb servant to the club. I think he was brilliant. I think we brought in a very, very good replacement. He's probably our best centre back this season, probably our best player this season. So that I find interesting. But I think it's one of those. I think Arsenal are just they. When I watch Arsenal play, they're not consistently going forward. They're not like really entertaining football, but they just do get the job done. And you can kind of see this being one where, for me, I probably wouldn't watch it, and I'd check my phone at the end of the games and see that Arsenal have won 2-0 away to Fulham, and I wouldn't really bat an eyelid. I wouldn't be very surprised. So it's one of those where it could definitely go both ways. Obviously, they're drawing 0-0 to Man United at the minute. If they get a good result here, then they're kind of, back in it, if you like, in terms of the title race. They'd only be, I'm not incredible maths, 5 points off Liverpool, so better. So I think it's just one of those games where you just got to wait and see what happens. But there's no reason why Fulham can't get a result.
No, I fully appreciate that, mate. Right, let's move on. Jay, I'm going to come to you, and I know we have had discussions on H's show saying about forwards that we like and all that, and I have to say, from my point of view, Evan Nilsson and Delap are some of my favourite strikers in the Premier League this season. I don't know about you, mate, but I mean, this has definitely got goals written over it, because both teams can't defend to save their lives and all that. They're not very tight at the back, but they can definitely score goals. I mean, are you excited by this one, or are you going to be just going with it?
Well, it's going to be an interesting one. I'd probably say, looking at the game, that if you told me I had a choice between Delap and Evan Nilsson, I'd probably go more towards Delap, because I think what you get with Evan Nilsson is a guy who gets himself in the positions. And if you look at, particularly in the Wolves game, he was able to help get a couple of the penalties because he was a nuisance. He got in amongst them and things like that. If I'm being brutally honest, though, the players that I'd be more excited about, particularly with looking at Bournemouth, is more Semenyo and Cliver, because I think when you look at those two, they cause a lot of damage. They create a lot more with regards to it, and I just think that when you look at, and I mean, forgetting that their only win was against us, and obviously Palace's first win was against us, so you're welcome for that one. But when you look at Ipswich as a whole, it's a championship team. One of the things that frustrates me with championship teams when they come up is when they buy championship players for the Premier League, and then they wonder why they're in the position that they're in. And you're like, you look at them. I mean, it's like there's a reason why Jack Clark excelled at Sunderland, struggled at Tottenham, excelled at Leeds when they're in the championship, but then he's now struggling at Ipswich. It's so difficult, because you're making it a lot harder for yourself to be able to find the players, unearth that diamond that is going to work for you. And when you look at, as I say, I'm looking at the team that they put out yesterday against Palace, players that were there. Dara O'Shea got relegated from Burnley. You've got the likes of players that were there before, players that were there in League One. So where is it that you are trying to show a competitive edge? So I can only see a Bournemouth win. I think that they'll be, they'll make it interesting and they'll have a go, but I can only see a Bournemouth win, and I think could be quite a heavy one, if I'm honest.
I completely agree with you, 100%. Morgan Rogers has just scored a screamer for Villa, by the way, so they're beating Brentford. But I completely agree, and I have to say, Ipswich were poor, really poor last night. They just, I know it was only 1-0. I mean, it could have been more. Eze missed 2 really big chances. I think he's missed about 9 one-on-ones this season. It's doing my head in. But Mateta had another massive chance he could have scored. We missed a few chances, came close from set pieces as well. Their style of play is extremely championship. They just seem to kind of they're trying to play long to Delap, because Delap is a quality player, and I think he'd be unbelievable, even for someone like Bournemouth, in fact. He's just that chaos striker, but I think he also kind of would thrive in a system where he just receives good service, and I don't think he receives that at Ipswich. I think you've got Delap, Hutchinson, and that's probably it for me in terms of actually solid Premier League quality players in that Ipswich squad. Mm-hmm. I think the opening 10 minutes of the game last night was just bizarre. Sam Morsey just kicking people, and they're just throwing themselves into fouls and getting frustrated that the referee's giving decisions against them when they're not. And then when they win the ball, they're just trying to go long, and it was just a really bizarre game to watch, because it felt a lot of the time, other than maybe 15-20 minutes, that Palace were they'd won the game already, and it was just a weird game to see. And I think Bournemouth are a great team. Semenyo's been superb this season. You mentioned Evan Nilsson as well, who's also a really good player. And I think that I can't see anything other than a comfortable Bournemouth win here. I think Bournemouth have the cutting edge that Palace lacked last night, and I think that will really punish Ipswich, because I just don't think they give away too many chances, and they don't create enough for themselves. And I think Muric in goal is not a very good goalkeeper, to be honest. And I think it could be a pretty rough afternoon for them.
Yeah, no, exactly, mate. Exactly. I mean, Spurs have got Bournemouth tomorrow, so I am not feeling the most comfortable, and it is obviously at the Vitality Stadium as well. So that'll be one to watch. I mean, we did hear someone in the background say motion detected, so I don't know whether that is your blow up doll activating itself because it's feeling lonely tonight. I mean, I thought it was Jay. I thought it was Jay.
Come on, I've got a hand pump. I'm not an amateur. That thing's locked and loaded. Don't you worry about that. I'm not going to need a motion sensor for that thing. Come on. You should know me better than that. I bought it off you anyway. I bought your leftovers, your sloppy seconds, as you called it.
Yeah, and then the problem was that Barney's gone bright red, and I bought it off of him. So I don't know what the hell it's happening here.
I feel like I'm going to have to hit Justin up soon. It's going to be my turn.
It was defective when I freaking bought it, so I don't know. It was defective when I bought it, so it's fucked now that you've got it, mate.
You sold it with 3 working offices. I don't know where they went.
Oh. Don't know. They didn't come with it when I got it. Let's go. Yeah, let's put it that way. Let's go to the Midlands now. Well, not so much the Midlands, but we'll go to Leicester. Obviously, Rue Van Nistelrooy has taken over there. I think it will be about game 3 or 4 by the time he is playing this one. And I mean, obviously, a legend of the game, and a very unfortunate one that he didn't stay at United. I think they're probably regretting that for his attacking football sense. So, Barney, let me come to you on this one, because I know...
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, Leicester are very inconsistent. They have got their new manager, and obviously Brighton, we think, are literally the best thing since sliced bread in terms of their scouting and transfer department. So, what's your thoughts on this one, mate?
My thoughts on this one are, Leicester had a great result against West Ham yesterday, and that will give Rude, that momentum going forward. You've got Jamie Vardy scoring there. They really performed well against West Ham. So that momentum going forward certainly will, in my opinion anyway, be of assistance to Leicester against Brighton. Brighton, as we all know, we taught them up so much. They're a well-run club. They have just a great setup, brilliant players. I haven't got a bad word to say about them, Callum, to be honest. I just love the way they run. They're a club who's really established themselves up in the Premier League, and I love their manager. And they if they perform to their best, they can be right up there at the end of the season. But Leicester will be no pushovers for certain. I mean, they'll have that momentum from West Ham. I think Rude's got them playing. He'll get them playing the way he wants to. New manager, bounce, that kind of, is still there. Being at home, that kind of willing feeling going into this. Obviously, it depends how Brighton do against us tomorrow night. We shall see. That might affect momentum. I don't know, but I don't know. I can see a surprise Leicester win here, Callum. I think the momentum will carry them through.
Okie dokie. And Henry, if I come to you on this one, mate, because I think Leicester are the polar opposite of Ipswich. I mean, yeah, they were playing shockingly shit under Steve Cooper and all that, but their squad is more designed as a Premier League squad, isn't it? I know they've got a lot of players who have Premier League experience. They've obviously straight returned to the Premier League after getting relegated. I mean, do you feel they're more kitted out than Ipswich to survive this season, especially under someone like Rude?
Oh, I don't think that's even a question, to be honest. Like, 100%. Like, they've got. I think you mentioned obviously they kind of bounced straight back up. I think they've got. I'm distracted because Ollie Watkins is about to take a penalty to potentially go 2-0 up against Brentford. Oh no, it's gone in, almost saved. But
we will wait.
No, I do think that you've got a lot of players. The core of that squad came down. They had a season in the Championship, which obviously was an absolute fly for them. And then they've come back up, and they're doing well. They've obviously also got Jamie Vardy, who I just don't think will ever stop scoring goals. As much as everyone hates him, he just seems to just score goals. He probably will do, maybe even pushing 40. He'll still be scoring goals. But he's just, I think it's just a good squad. Obviously, you've got one of their best players, Leicester, is Buonanotte, who's on loan from Brighton. He obviously won't be playing, so that could be a bit of a miss for Leicester. I think Brighton are just one of those teams. I don't enjoy gassing Brighton up, obviously, but they are just one of those teams that are pretty consistent. They've kind of had a few injuries, and those players have come back in. Matt O'Reilly, Brian Gruder, who they signed, is a really exciting young player. And, we constantly speak about their scouting and their recruitment because it is just second to none, unfortunately. But they've got such a dynamic attacking squad. I think defensively, that you could get at Brighton. I think obviously Lewis Dunk's on his way out. I think Van Heck's a good player, but then it's Igor, and he's not great. But I think it could be a really exciting game, actually, a really entertaining game. So it's one I'll probably keep an eye on for sure.
Okie dokie. And talking of pushing 40 and being on his way out, Jay, obviously Leicester do have some ex-Spurs players in midfield in Oliver Skipp and Harry Winks, obviously two of our own, both Premier League experience as well. So I'll give you the same question as well that I gave to Henry about Leicester having the squad to survive, especially under Rude. Do you think these guys are going to be crucial to that?
Yes and no. I'm just more shocked you think I'm pushing 40. Thank you very much. I'm over that hill, but I'll take the compliment. I know you don't mean it, but when you look at where Leicester sort of stand in terms of
you're over the hill, closer to a box in the ground, aren't you, mate? Then there we go.
Don't give my wife any ideas, please. She's already, she's like that. So don't, please. But when you look at Leicester as a whole, okay, the whole point of it is that let's be realistic. It was pretty much the team that got relegated and came back up, okay, and as you said, they were kind of clever in terms of the players they had. You've got Jamie Vardy, I think. I can't remember which one of you said about Facundo Buonanotte. Obviously he won't be able to play that game. So that will be a difficult one because he's been really, really important for Leicester in there. But most of it in terms of from the midfield down, I would say actually has been really, really good for them. And we saw that reflected in terms of the game with West Ham. The problem though for me, and this is where I think Brighton will get a lot of success is when you look at Leicester at the back. I mean, they had Conor Godey and Yannick Vestergaard, you know, who literally move at 2 miles a month. You know, when you look at them, they are so slow. And I do feel when you look at, and I've watched Brighton quite a lot, and you look at the likes of João Pedro, Karim Matoma, Adingra, Minte, who I thought was a good buy in terms of Newcastle, what they're able to do in terms of getting pace and getting down those flanks. Yes, okay, when it comes to set pieces, they might get a better success than a lot of clubs would under Danny Welbeck. But I just feel that at the back, Leicester are going to struggle more than perhaps Brighton would when it comes to that. So obviously we don't know how they're going to come out off the back of the game against Fulham tomorrow, but I would put this down as a draw. I think you've got the new manager bounce against a very good Brighton side, and to me, I think you might see a 1-1 or a 2-2.
No, I fully appreciate that, mate. And if I stay with you, Jay, obviously, big game for Spurs at the weekend. I mean, will Chelsea be burying Spurs with you in the same place that your wife is going to be burying you on Monday morning? Or will we be hopefully seeing just you buried and Spurs surviving? What do you reckon?
Well, I'm assuming by you asking that is a rhetorical question. This is Chelsea. You know, I mean, we were waxing lyrical about the fact we played 9 men and we played them all against the halfway line, and we were amazed at how Ange decided to play that, even though we lost 4-1. You know, not being funny, we are out of sorts. It really does depend. Will the real Tottenham Hotspur please stand up? Because, you know, we can do brilliantly. It's almost like this arrogant attitude of the club, because you look at how we can do against the likes of Aston Villa, Man United, Man City, places like that. And yet when we then come up against, no disrespect, Crystal Palace, Fulham, places that are the lower ones, that if you are meant to be that top 4 all team competing at the top, that you should be getting results at, particularly at home, and you can't even turn up, and you're not the better club there. You would expect that Chelsea will come there, especially now, as in the game they're 3-1 up. Maresca's probably going to be looking at it and thinking, well, this game's done. I could probably start to be bringing, players off the likes of Nkunku and Jackson and Palmer. Do I need to play them for 90 minutes? I probably could rest them, give them some minutes on the bench ready for that game. But as I said, it's a team that currently at the moment is going to go second in the table. So will then Tottenham look at it and go, it's one of the big boys, perhaps we'll turn up for that one. So we'll really have to wait and see. I think the key part, and it really reflected it in the Fulham game, was the fact that we missed someone like Solanke. I would have liked to see Will Lancashire playing up there as an out and out, because I think, as we've seen, and Barney will perhaps agree with me on this, is the fact that, Fulham are great going forward, but they're really bad at the back in terms of when Anderson isn't there, because you've got Diop, who's really slow, and is it Bassi?
He's not had many games,
and Bassi just seems to have 2 or 3 mistakes in him. So you do sort of look at it, and I think that will be one of the things that if we again don't have Solanke, or we don't pay Lancashire, and we start with Son up top, that I think it's going to make it easy for Chelsea. And as we've seen how devastating they are going forward. So as much as I would love to think Tottenham are going to turn up and give it a real good go, I think this could become a real tricky week for Ange. I worry about the game tomorrow, and I certainly worry about the game on Sunday.
No, I fully appreciate that, mate. And just to bury you a little deeper as well, Doku has just scored for City, so Haaland is nowhere near that again either. I don't even think he got a assist on this. Well, he has got an assist tonight for Doku's goal, so you might get a few points.
That's right.
So
bear in mind, I took out Isak and I took out Morgan Rogers. I'm having an amazing one here. I am.
I'm having a terrible night.
That was one of those funny assists. Though. I mean, Haaland played a decent through ball, and Doku beat 2 men and then just bent one into the far corner. It was a bit of a nothing assist, to be honest. But they all count.
I'll take it. The way my dream team's going. Bear in mind, I took out Isak and I put Wissa in, who's having an amazing game at the moment.
Yeah.
Well, let's put it this way. I mean, Villa are 3-0 up. Arsenal are 0-0. United, Chelsea are 3-1 up on Southampton. Newcastle are drawing with Liverpool now 1-0. City are 3-0 up, and Everton are 3-0 on Wolves. So, I mean, looks like Sean Dyche's football is working, considering Wolves have had a bit of a resurgence recently as well. So, I mean, if I come to, well, obviously, I will apologise to both of my co-hosts for Jay saying that Fulham and Palace are below Spurs as clubs in the rankings. So if you want to join Jay's wife in burying him deeper, you are allowed to go with that one if you want to.
Spoiler alert, she won't share the insurance money.
It's okay. I'll just wait until the reverse fixture at Spurs, and then if we beat you again.
No, it's fine because we'll be interested in Eze, and then he'll score his only hat trick of the season. It will be fine. Since we've been linked with him, he's done absolutely terribly. But then when we play you again at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, he'll score a hat trick, and then we'll be like, "Oh, we've got to sign him again."
I mean, the rate is going. If you want to give us 60 million in January, go for it.
Yeah, the only problem is his wages. Have you seen how tight Daniel Levy is? He whistles when he walks.
Yeah, I was going to say he's tighter than a nun's arsehole, let's put it that way on that one. But definitely with Eze, he's probably playing shit to put his price tag down so a big club can come in for him. But I mean,
Liverpool
Henry,
are 2-1 down. Anthony Gordon. There you go.
Oh, there we go. That's another big one. Athletic did an article today or yesterday saying about Liverpool are still interested in Anthony Gordon for 75 million. So maybe he's putting on a show to convince them to buy him.
He's done that as his celebration. So
what a tool. What a twat. He does have that way about him. So if I come to you, Henry, on this one, obviously Spurs are literally either we play outstanding or we play absolutely diabolical, and I think literally the last two results have been a fluke to actually get draws, to at least get a point out of something when we haven't played particularly well at all. I mean, this game scares the shite out of me and all that. Ever since Battle of the Bridge, it's been a really rough fixture for us, to say the least, and I think the only time I can remember us properly winning at the White Hart Lane was, I think, the 5-3 game on New Year's Day when we had Nasser Chadley and Andros Townsend playing for us, which was really, really poor. So, I mean, where can you see this one going, mate?
I think you should be scared. And, I mean, I think Chelsea are just... I mean, it's been interesting, actually, their game against Southampton. They could either be 7-0 up or it could be 3-0. But it's one of those where I think Chelsea just have such, so much dynamism and talent in the forward line. I think, Cole Palmer's got the abilities we saw. I remember the game Brighton at home, I think it was 4-2. And in that first half, he basically just grabbed the game by the scruff of its neck and said, no, we're winning this. And I think he, if he turns up, I think it's just one of those. I think obviously you've still got your defensive worries in terms of, who's starting at central defence. And I don't want to say this on Harry's channel, but I do think this could be a bit of an ugly one for Spurs. There's definitely the potential for it. And I think that, obviously there's the added rivalry and all of that. And I think that it could definitely be a damaging loss for Postecoglou if it was to go that way. I want to say, I think, I've maintained the standpoint that I think he's got time and that it's going to be quite a thing about the club having quite a lot of patience towards him. But I think if there's a heavy defeat to Chelsea, that could definitely turn that.
No, I fully appreciate that. And Barney, I'll come to you, obviously, because Chelsea are your rivals. But the first question is, should I be digging a hole next to where Jay's going to be buried after this game and just end it to stop myself having the shame as well of being on a Spurs podcast ever again if we get completely pulverised?
You might need to borrow my shovel with what I'm about to say. You see, the thing is...
Oh, God. You supply the shovel. Henry's got the bag of lime.
Well, I will supply all the equipment, don't worry. But yeah, in terms of the game, right, this is my opinion. Obviously, I speak to Harry a lot about Spurs. I've watched them a hell of a lot. all the time, actually, probably as much as I do Fulham. And from what I saw when we played them is, yeah, you were missing players, but even the likes of Son and that lot, who just looked off it, completely off the boil, just nothing like the player he should have been. I thought he had a really below par game and should have scored, quite frankly. And just a few of the misses that I thought Spurs were guilty of. And we took our chance and, came away with a point. Obviously, it worries me. Sorry, guys, to say this, and sorry, Harry, to say this on your channel, but these next 2 games for Spurs really scare me because I do think if I was Spurs, I wouldn't be confident for Bournemouth and I would not be confident for Chelsea. I think I love Ange. I really do. I rate him highly. I like what he's doing with Spurs. I like his style, I like the way he speaks. I've always talked him up. But, after these good 2 games, if it goes against you, he could be under immense pressure. It's a results business, isn't it? I just think if, Chelsea got quality all over the pitch. You certainly missed Solanke against us, Jay, 100%. 100%. Had he started, that shocked me that he didn't start. I think we capitalised there for certain. I think he would have put one of those chances away. If for some reason he doesn't start against Chelsea or Bournemouth, then you might have problems. We shall see. But I don't like saying this on Harry's channel, but I fancy Chelsea here.
No, I fully appreciate that, mate. I'm definitely feeling a bit of tension, let's put it that way. And based on his press conference today, there weren't many saving graces that came out of it, let's put it that way. If players are coming back, they're nowhere near 100% either. So we shall see. So let's jump to our final game of week 15, and that is West Ham Wolves at the Olympic Stadium. And I will always say the Olympic Stadium because it has a fucking running track. It is not a football stadium. It's not an entertainment arena. It's an athletics arena. Get used to it, West Ham fans. But let me come to Henry on this one because I know we were speaking before the game, and obviously Lopetegui, there was a board meeting with the West Ham board today, and they were split down the middle on this decision, whether to give him a chance or whether to say, we put a lot of money behind you, you've done nothing, this could be your last week in charge. I mean, obviously, bad game last night against Leicester. Obviously, Wolves ain't having a great night either tonight against Everton, but I think that this has got... Is this a game with the writing all over the wall that could be Lopetegui's last?
I just think this is a case of who's going to be worse on the day, to be honest. It's one of those. It's 2 teams that aren't doing very well at all at the moment. The main thing for me about Lopetegui is that, there was you saw a lot of videos of the away end at Leicester chanting, you're getting sacked in the morning. And I think when the match going, I think I always find it really interesting to look at how the reaction to managers, to wins, to losses, to whatever, between the social media fan base and the match going fan base. And I think once you lose the match going fan base, I think you're in a really dangerous position. I think people can say what they like on social media about players, about managers, about owners, whatever. But I think when you're actually at the stadium and you've just lost 3-1 against a newly promoted side that aren't incredible, and the entire away end chanting you're getting sacked in the morning, there's definitely something to be worried about. And that for me is why there's probably they've held this kind of crisis meeting, if you like. And I'm surprised that the decision has been, it's 50-50, as you said, and he's probably not going to get sacked just yet. I just find that incredible because they're doing pretty poorly. I think they were the top spenders in the Premier League in the summer, and they brought in some brilliant players. And I think a lot of people are looking at West Ham, with a lot of anticipation and excitement. But we often see that it is the case that when teams that spend a lot of money and bring in a lot of players, they don't actually do very well. I think his style of play is poor. I think it doesn't suit the players that he's got. It doesn't help that the likes of, Jarrod Bowen, his form's fallen off a little bit. You can't really rely on Mikel Antonio to do what he has done in seasons gone. And I just think it could be one of those games where Wolves have. I think Wolves have been unlucky. They're a weird team. That they play quite well. Cunha is incredible. I don't know how he's still there. He's surely going to be gone in January. Any of the top clubs should be looking at him. Spurs, I think he would do brilliantly. Maybe over Maddison in that kind of central 10 role. I think Cunha would be incredible. So I think it's one of those games where the toxicity around West Ham paired with Wolves' desperation at the moment to get points, I think it could end up being quite an ugly day at the Olympic Stadium. Sorry, I almost did a bad thing there.
No, I fully appreciate that, mate. I mean, it's definitely one of them where I think there's a divide between the ideas the manager has and the transfer strategy at West Ham. I mean, they've got a director of football buys players, and it's told to the manager, you will do this, you will do that. This is what you do. Whereas Wolves do have cracking players. Cunha, I think it's Hwang Hee-chan as well, the South Korean striker they've got as well. I mean, bit of a temperamental player, but guarantees you probably 7 to 10 goals if he gets formed. Not a bad option either at the top. And they've still got a lot of good players in there. So, Jay, if I come over to you on this one, mate, obviously West Ham always seem to have the game of their life when they play against Spurs. When they play against everyone else, not so much. But are you shocked by their form this year, or do you think it?
Well, I think
expected.
To be honest, I think with West Ham, it's to be careful what you wish for. You know, they spent so long trying to get David Moyes out of the club, and bearing in mind they got him out of the club one time before, and then begged to have him back, and then he wins him a trophy, and then they get him out of the club, and now they're in this position. So they've really got nobody to blame but themselves. They have bought well, I would say. I agree with what you were saying in terms of they've bought some excellent players, but for one reason or another, it isn't just working. But you know, we could say that, but you know, I think this is either going to be an exciting game or it's going to be the dullest football match you'll have ever seen in your life, because you've got two teams that are struggling, that are desperate to get something out of this game, and will just be hoping they can do all they can, even if they get a point. Because if Lopetegui sees it through to this point, and to be fair, even if Gary O'Neill sees it through to this point, they will take anything. I think, to be fair, they could just shake hands at the beginning and be done with it, which is a shame because, you know, I agree they've both got some really, really good players, but for one reason or another, just doesn't seem to be working. Have put themselves in the mix down at the bottom, which I think has done a favour for a lot of clubs down there. You know, and as I say, if I would be somebody simply to say, if you're going to if you're going to the Athletic Stadium to go and watch a game of football, good luck, because I can imagine it might be more interesting to watch paint dry. So I'm going to have to shoot, but thank you so much for having us on, and I'll catch up with you all soon. All right.
All the best, Jay.
Nice to meet you, Justin. Cheers.
Take care.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for that. Take it, man. Right, obviously. So, Barney, I will come to you lastly on this, mate.
Yeah.
Obviously, should we be enjoying a good game with West Ham Wolves, or would everyone going to the stadium be better off just going to Westfield and doing a bit of late night shopping? What do you reckon, mate?
What I reckon is, I think West Ham have handled the whole process of, you know, hiring and firing completely wrong. I mean, just from start to finish, their recruitment's been good, but I just don't get the direction of the club, Kallum, at all. I just don't know their identity. They just seem to me as like, they got good players, don't get me wrong, but they just don't know what to do with them. And it's the same with Wolves. Cunha, I'd love to have him at Fulham. I think he's brilliant. I think he'd actually do really, really well. In fact, he was one of the standout players when Wolves defeated us. I was watching him. Well, he was the only actually entertaining player on the pitch, quite frankly, because none of ours were. Yeah, so it does surprise me they're both down there. It really does, because I expected better of both of them, especially West Ham. So it does surprise me why he's not been dismissed yet. But then what's going to change if they hire him for? You know what I mean?
But then also, Kallum touched on it as well, that the kind of... has it ever worked where you've got a director that goes and buys players and you're not doing it for the manager? I think it's just not a smart... Obviously, I understand it in a sense. You want to buy talented players and, you know, you look longer term, and obviously if it is that Lopetegui leaves, there might be a manager that comes in and really gels with the type of player that they've got and the personnel that they've recruited in the summer. But I think you're setting yourself up for failure when you're just buying names instead of you know, positions that you need, or personalities that fit the dressing room, and 100%. All of these different things. And I think it's just, you know, the full crew signing was just like, well, I know he scored obviously 93rd minute, but it's a strange signing. He did okay for Dortmund at the end of last season. He wasn't. I don't think he was lights out incredible. You know, you always have to take into account with players coming from, especially the Bundesliga. For me, I think we say it about Serie A as well, but that's a league that this year is just ridiculously competitive. But I think you've really got to look at it and think, why have they brought him in on the wages that he's on, and when it was only ever, and he's on a 3-year contract, if I'm not mistaken. You know, this is like a player coming towards the end of his career. I'd understand it if it was more of a stopgap whilst you wait for a better option to come up. Obviously, they had the links to John Duran. I don't know if it was maybe a panic when that signing didn't quite materialise. But it was such a bizarre signing for me. But then, you know, you look at Wolves, who are now 4-0 down against Everton, which is just
4-0.
I don't think anyone's been 4-0 down against Everton for a very long time. And I think that, you know, the hit to their confidence that this could do is massive. And I think, you know, you touched on it brilliant. You know, Westfield's around the corner. I think there's going to be a lot more energy and charisma if you're going on a little Christmas shopping trip than there is if you're heading to the Olympic Stadium.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. I mean, like you were saying about the Fulcrook system or signing. I mean, is he nearly 30 now? Something like that. He's the sort of epitome of being a sort of target man sort of thing. If you put a ball in his head, and he'll do it. But West Ham don't play that way. There's no style or identity to it, and
well, he's not nearly 30.
Just one of them. Where...
He's 31 years old, so he's got a contract until he's almost 34.
Fucking Ada.
Wow.
So, I mean, literally, you've got old strikers don't work in the league unless you're Jamie Vardy, where you still got on pace and you can beat Usain Bolt in a race and all that. So, I mean, literally, it just doesn't work. And the idea is one of them that I can only see Wolves doing something here. I can't see West Ham getting anything. I might be wrong, but I think O'Neill's got more chance of being in a job by Christmas than Lopetegui. Let's put it that way.
It's also just really quickly on Fulkrug as well. 27 million euros, and he started 4 games.
It's crazy money.
That's just insane. You know, 27 million gets you. You know, I mean, we spent less than that on Lacroix, who's been our best player this season.
Emil Smith-Rowe, we spent roughly that much on from Arsenal.
Exactly. And I understand that the market's changed and developed, but I almost feel like in the summer it kind of reverted in a sense. It kind of went a little bit back to what it used to be, where, you know, 30 million gets you a quality player. And I'm all for that, because I was getting a bit sick of, you know, seeing teams having to spend 60, 70 million just to get a remotely competent player. But, you know, that is just, what were they thinking? You have to ask the question, what on earth were they thinking? You know, splashing almost 30 million euros on a player who's obviously not, they didn't want him that badly because he's started 4 games.
But then West Ham have form for this, don't they, as well? They've got Skamaka before. They've had Zabaleta. They've had who was the other one that they got? There was other strikers that they've bought that with no residual resale value at all, and all that. I mean, I've just pulled up their transfers just to remind myself. Max Kallum, 47.5 million euros. I think Kallman is he's only 27, but I mean, so that's quite old in the sense of things, but. You know, 47 million euros. I mean, I can't get the conversion to the pounds up on my computer just now, but like Max Kallman was never. We'll be looking at,
you know, he was
39, 40 million.
Exactly. He was you know, when I think of his time at Wolves, he was a Premier League centre back. He was a centre back who played in the Premier League. He wasn't an incredible centre back. He wasn't, you know, making headlines. I just, again, it's just, what is that signing? When, you know, there were players like Lacroix, Trevor Chalobah, who Palace got on a loan. You could go and get him on a permanent, probably out of Chelsea. There's so much talent that's available, and they almost, you know, I like the Somerville signing. I think he's a cracking player, but apart from that, then they're not. I don't think there's anyone on that list of signings that you really sit out and think, oh wow, that's actually a really good incoming. You know, Carlos Soler from PSG, who, you know, just didn't do that much. Obviously, Gilherm is one for the future, but you know, then it's just bizarre. I think Wan-Bissaka a decent signing, but other than that, you bring Tadibo on a loan, and he's not incredible. Rodriguez from Real Betis, who's also not incredible, albeit that was a free transfer. I just think that their recruitment, they bought in a lot of bodies, but it reminds me of Forest when they came up, when they bought in 30, 35 different players.
They bought a lot in, yeah.
And you look at their squad now, and I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there's maybe 2 or 3 of those players from that spending spree that are still here in their current squad. And it just doesn't work. You don't go out and just buy players for the sake of it or bring players in for the sake of it. And that's exactly what they've done with Kallum and Fulkrug as well.
It reminds me of the magnificent 7 that we had at Spurs and all that when we sold Bale. We went out trying to get the Beatles, and instead we just got some dodgy backstreet band. Let's put it that
exactly,
way. So,
exactly.
It was definitely one of them.
It's just one of those games. I think Wolves' confidence is going to be buried down with Justin at this rate. 4-0 down, and that is. It's a great result for Everton. You've got to give them credit for that, but it's just
massive result.
Yeah,
Chelsea they're up to 15, comfortable. But West Ham have got to be looking over their shoulders, and I'm sure that their fans will be, because like we've mentioned again, it's a tight league, and you're looking at 6 points between West Ham and Ipswich in 18th, and that can all change very quickly. It can all change extremely quickly, and I think teams are going to start acting quite quickly. I think in terms of management, we've seen Leicester already, obviously. I think just the nature of this Premier League, especially the teams in the kind of lower half of the table, are going to be, if it's not going well and it doesn't look like it's going to get any better, things are going to change very quickly, I think.
I agree,
exactly.
100%.
And just one concerning thing for me as well, in light of the Spurs-Chelsea game at the weekend, Cole Palmer has got 15 goals and assists in 16 games for Chelsea now, which really freaking scares me and concerns me. So on that cheery note, obviously at present we are looking at Everton Wolves, Everton 4-0 up. City are 3-0 up on Forest. Newcastle have just gone 3-2 down to Liverpool. Now Salah has, I believe, either scored or Salah has just got another one.
13 goals now for the season.
Wow.
Yeah, so I mean, man's outstanding, and if they do lose him, that will be a very big shock to their system. Chelsea are 4-1 on Southampton at St Mary's. That's just putting more nails in the coffin. Whether it's Justin's coffin, I don't know yet, or whether it's just Russell Martin's, we shall see on that one. Arsenal are at half-time with Man United, and that is 0-0, which is quite a surprise, but it looks like Amorim's defensive back style might be nullifying Arsenal at present. And it is 3-0 at half-time for Villa against Brentford. So obviously, it's been a pleasure as always, guys, for Gameweek 15. So Barney, thanks very much as always, mate. Doing this with me this season. Where can
absolutely
everyone find you, mate?
Yeah, it's great to talk to you guys, and thank you, Kallum, for brilliant host as always, and good to see you, Henry, as well. And thank you, Harry, for inviting me onto these shows. It means a lot to me. You can find me on X at Ambrose Barnaby, or TikTok Barney FFC, talking about Fulham and Marco Silva and the Premier League and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, looking forward to doing more of these shows with you, Kallum. So long may it continue.
Lovely stuff. Thank you, mate. And obviously, Henry, thank you for jumping on at last minute this time, mate, as well. I know you will become more of a regular during the season, hopefully, and hopefully Palace are still in the season for you to do it next year as well. But it's been a pleasure, mate. Where can everyone find you?
Yeah, cheers, lads. I've really, really enjoyed it. Obviously, brilliant hosting it as always, and it's been really nice to chat to you, Barney. I think you're very eloquent in the way you speak about football, so I quite enjoyed our conversations tonight.
Oh, thank you.
I'm on X at the moment, but trying to transition over to Blue Sky slowly. So it's just Henry Swain Journ. TikTok, since we last spoke, still haven't done anything yet with that. I've been making a bit of movement behind the scenes though with some jobs. So I'm going to be starting freelance football reporting for BBC Kent. So that's quite exciting. But so you'll be able to hear me on some games for that if you care about football in Kent. It's mainly Gillingham, but a couple of good non-league teams as well. But yeah. So other than that, it's been fun as always. So I'm looking forward to the next time I'm on for sure.
Lovely stuff, mate. Obviously, and Jay, who left us earlier, don't forget to check him out at JJ Codger on Twitter. Whether he survives the weekend, whether his wife does bury him on Monday morning, we will have a live update on that on Harry's show on Monday night as well. So I will make sure that we do carry that. But obviously, don't forget to like and subscribe to H's channel. Obviously, we are coming to the end of 2024 with less than a month to go, and obviously H did do his football content awards, came second, which was brilliant as well. So don't forget to like and subscribe his channel so we can keep doing all this content and all the great podcasters who do give up their time to join us on there. And if anyone can be bothered to listen to my waffle, I'll either be on usually on some Monday nights with H, but most of the time on Wednesday shows, or for the Premier League show for Gameweek 16 next week. If you want to find me on Twitter, it is Kallum Stubbs 97. Don't forget to check out my own channel with Luke, Dave, Winnie, and Wes as well over at Park Lane Podcast, which is mainly for Spurs. So thanks very much, guys, and have a good rest of the week and bring on more Premier League games.